Strong cold front continues to sweep across the country, bringing much cooler temperatures, lower humidity, and rounds of severe weather in that transition. We're going to be talking about the long-range pattern as we go into next week and new tropical developments in the Atlantic Ocean to talk about at the very end of the video. Welcome back to Weather on the Go, all your weather coverage on this Friday, August 30th, 2024. Thank you all for subscribing to the channel over the last several days. I do appreciate all the new subscribers, all the old subscribers. Thank you so much for your support. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, make sure you do down below here for the latest weather information right at your fingertips, especially for videos, but also live streams as well. Make sure to press the like button down below, the thumbs up button. It helps to get all of this information passed to more and more people. Leave any comments, questions, and concerns below as well. We'll get to those later on today. And remember, my winter forecast for 2024 and 2025 will be unveiled tomorrow on Saturday, August 31st, 2024. So make sure that you have all post notifications turned on for that tomorrow, as that will be unveiled on Saturday. Let's dive into the forecast here for today, and you can see, looking at the GOES satellite imagery, a couple things I want to point out to you here. A very strong occluding low pressure system up into Manitoba and Ontario, Canada today. You can see that cinnamon bun look here on the water vapor imagery, and with an extending cold front down across the upper Midwest and all the way down into the Plains states. And we also have some heavier moisture down near coastal Texas, Louisiana, and Mississippi, bringing all of that heavy rain as of recent to places like the Houston Metroplex, Lake Charles, New Orleans, and Gulfport, Mississippi over the past several days. Here's a better depiction of where those frontal boundaries lay out here as of this Friday. We have an occluding low pressure system around 990 millibars right on the territories of Manitoba and Ontario, and then we have a cold front extending down through the Badger State of Wisconsin, the Hawkeye State of Iowa, and all the way down here into Oklahoma and Kansas as of this time. Warm front stationary boundary further off to the east. That's where the warm sector currently is, still across portions there of the Ohio Valley and the southeast United States. So here are your temperatures, low temperatures waking up this morning, and notice where the cold front is. Behind it, much cooler temperatures into the 40s and the 50s waking up this morning. Lower humidity, you're probably noticing that and opening up your windows. In the warm sector, we did warm up a little bit here into the 60s and 70s to start the day, and those are the areas that will be into the 90s, middle 90s as we go into this afternoon. So if you live in Indiana, Ohio, Kentucky, West Virginia on south through the southeast, including Florida, you're going to be well into the 90s likely this afternoon, but a refreshing brand of air across the northern U.S. in the wake of the cold front across the Dakotas, Nebraska, Minnesota, Montana, Wyoming, Wisconsin, Iowa, a lot of these areas into the 60s, 70s, and low 80s this afternoon, and much more importantly, lower humidity. Notice those areas really don't have a heat index, although the heat index in the warm sector will be approaching 100 degrees for areas like St. Louis today, Indianapolis, Cincinnati, Lexington, Kentucky, all the way down to the Music City here in Nashville, and then further south toward the Atlanta metroplex as we go into this afternoon. Now, all this heat energy with the cold front clashing into that, you have the clash of the air masses. You have a warm, moist, and unstable air mass ahead of it. You have a drier, more stable air mass and cooler air mass behind it. And with the clash of air masses, we did have a regional tornado outbreak again yesterday across portions of eastern Minnesota and western Wisconsin. 4 tornadoes reported, a lot of wind reports out there, and that did extend down into the plains, and also some sporadic wind reports across the mid-Atlantic down into the southeast yesterday as well on your Thursday, August 29th. Here's the latest day 1 outlook from the Storm Prediction Center, looking at a marginal risk level 1 out of 5 from Missouri through Illinois into Indiana, Ohio, northwestern Pennsylvania, up into the Erie, Pennsylvania area, into the Wolverine state of Michigan, and we also have eastern Michigan, places like Detroit in that level 2 out of 5, slight risk of severe weather, and we also have that marginal extending down here into Virginia and the western Carolinas and northeastern Georgia today. Biggest risk by far will be damaging winds over 60 miles per hour and large hail in excess of quarter size, but a very small area of a potential 2% chance of a tornado within a 25-mile point there in eastern lower Michigan. This does include the Detroit Detroit metro area as we go through today. Looking at radar, what it could look like this afternoon, pretty sporadic will be our storms along that cold front. Until we get to the evening, we'll see more scattered coverage, but it's a broken line of some storms from Detroit all the way down toward Indianapolis, St. Louis, and even down toward Tulsa. We'll be keeping an eye on that this evening. Damaging winds and hail will be by far the main risk, followed by a couple of tornadoes, especially up here into eastern Michigan. And then as we go into the early Saturday morning hours, this is after midnight but before sunrise, we lose the daytime heating and we lose the coverage and intensity of those storms as the atmosphere slowly begins to stabilize. Heading into the Labor Day weekend time frame, on Saturday, we're going to have a glancing blow of a trough, that big low pressure system that's occluding in Manitoba and Ontario, Canada, that we're talking about here at the beginning of the video, will actually move further to the east in towards Quebec as we go into Saturday and Sunday. This trough will be deepening, so it's going to provide a nice refreshing air mass to the eastern U.S. as we go into Sunday, turning the page to early September, whereas we have a big ridge of high pressure out west here across the Pacific Northwest, the Rockies, the Pacific Southwest as we go into Sunday, and that continues as we go into Labor Day Monday as well. So what does that mean for our temperatures? Saturday afternoon, we're going to be into the 90s again for parts of the northern plains. A lot of this is actually driven by our soil moisture, very low in these areas. So when you have dry soil, the temperatures tend to heat up a lot faster with drier ground. And that is actually true, especially into the Pacific Northwest with significant drought there, and even parts of the Southeast where it's been pretty dry as of recent. Sunday afternoon, look at the air mass up here in the Twin Cities, in Green Bay, Chicago, Milwaukee, even into the Detroit area, barely cracking into the 70s. As we go into Sunday afternoon, heat building near 100 in Washington State here in the lower elevations off the Cascades as we go into Sunday afternoon. And then Monday morning, Labor Day morning, look at that, folks. Upper Midwest, Great Lakes region, and upstate New England, we're going to be seeing more of those upper 40s, low 50s to begin the day. Not too shabby down here near the Gulf Coast either, starting off in the 60s and 70s, and we're only getting into the upper 80s, low 90s down there. Nothing we can't handle. But look at the Northeast on Labor Day. Maine, down through Vermont, New Hampshire, New York, especially upstate New York into northern Pennsylvania, barely getting into the 60s for highs. So a nice taste of fall over there for Labor Day. The heat, though, will start to build across the Pacific Northwest, the Rockies, and parts of the southern Canadian prairies like Alberta, Saskatchewan, and western Manitoba as we go into Labor Day with temperatures up near 90. Precipitation prospects now as we go into Labor Day weekend on Saturday, August 31st. This is for tomorrow. Cold front's going to slow down a little bit. Could have some shower storm activity as we go into Saturday tomorrow from the northeast down into the Ohio Valley and into parts of the southern plains. And then as we go into Sunday, again, slow progression of that front will still linger around those shower and storm chances from the northeast, mid-Atlantic down to the southeast on Sunday. Finally, by Labor Day, most of the United States and southern Canada will be dry outside of Florida there. Parts of the eastern Carolinas getting some shower activity and maybe some robust showers and storms down into the Lone Star State of Texas and into Louisiana by then. And we need it. We'll take the drops of rain as we can get them down here because that significant drought continues to build. Here are your rainfall totals between tomorrow, Saturday, August 31st, and Labor Day Monday, September 2nd. The heaviest of the rains will be across the northeast, the mid-Atlantic, the southeast, although there will be some dry periods, especially into southern Alabama, southern Georgia, northwest Florida, for example, pretty dry there, and then picking back up with the rain further west towards Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, and Texas. Very dry to the north, so the upper Midwest will dry out. The plains, especially the north central plains, will dry out. Most of the Rockies will as well, and then out west will be pretty dry for Labor Day weekend itself. Here is the drought situation. Here's the drought monitor that was released yesterday. It's released every single Thursday. There are a couple pockets here that we are getting pretty significant in our drought categories in the red and maroon reds. Those are extreme category of drought in the red. Maroon red is exceptional drought, and you can see that building into parts of the Pacific Northwest. Another pocket here into New Mexico, West Texas, even southwestern Oklahoma seeing that. A couple pockets here in the Tennessee Valley and Dixie Alley, and then a very widespread pocket of that into southeastern Ohio and West Virginia as well. So hopefully we can get some much-needed moisture with the slowing of the cold front in these areas. And then heading into next week, beyond Labor Day through Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday of next week, the ridge slowly tries to move east toward the plains again. but it doesn't quite make it there. So it looks like the Rockies on west toward the west coast will be seeing those above normal temperatures during that 5-day stretch next week. And then you can see as we go to the eastern U.S., below normal temperatures will be across those areas as we go through that 5-day stretch next week as well. So a nice refreshing brand of air in the wake of what was a very high record-breaking heat wave across parts of the Chicagoland area, for example, getting heat indexes near 120 just a couple of days ago. Precipitation through next week. Here's your precipitation anomalies. Anywhere in the darker greens or blues here are seeing precipitation values of 1.5 to 2 inches above normal here for this time of year for next week. That stretches from the Carolinas through Dixie Alley all the way back toward Texas, including the Rio Grande Valley, and then down into northern Mexico. And a lot of these areas need the rainfall, and it will be plenty of it to go around. There could be 1 to 3 inches worth of rain across these areas from Texas into southern Arkansas, Louisiana, Tennessee, here into Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, the Carolinas, and Florida, and then up toward the Delmarva region seeing that. But pretty dry to the north and pretty dry to the west as we go through next week. Let's turn to the tropical weather update here. The National Hurricane Center in Miami, Florida is not watching anything over the next 7 days anymore for the Eastern Pacific Basin. However, turning over to the Atlantic Basin, things are starting to heat up once more. We did talk about several days ago, those water temperatures are really starting to warm up in the absence of convection and thunderstorm activity. And here we go. We got 2 areas of interest. The one more pressing one here is moving in toward the Windward Islands and into the central eastern Caribbean. That one has a 40% chance of development. Still a low probability to medium probability right now. I do expect this to grow in probability over the next few days, just looking at the favorability we'll talk about here in just a moment. And then the one behind that, which could be named Gordon, that one has a low probability now of 20% chance of developing, but that's way out here. That wave actually just came off the African coast just the other day. So let's look here at the GOES satellite imagery of the Atlantic Basin, and you can see there it could be Gordon. We have a weaker tropical wave moving off of Africa right now, and then there's an elongated version of what could be Francine that is moving just west toward the Windward Islands and what could move into the Caribbean as we go into next week. When you're several days out, we look at ensemble guidance, gives you a good idea of where the central low pressure could develop with these systems. Looking at the EPS ensemble guidance for Labor Day Monday, September 2nd, there's the wave. There's that tropical wave there that could be named Francine just to the east of Windward Islands. And then there could be that wave behind it there right on its heels that could be named Gordon in the near future, right behind it in the main development region. By the middle of next week, Wednesday, September 4th, that moves into the Caribbean. So this gets more interesting. So this could be named Francine by the middle of next week. There comes potentially Gordon right behind it, just to the east of the Windward Islands as we go into the middle of next week. And then looking at Friday, September 6th, a week from today, this could be a system to watch for Jamaica, for Cuba here, for parts of Haiti, the Dominican Republic, Puerto Rico. All these areas of interest in the Caribbean and surrounding the Caribbean need to watch this. This could be named Francine by the middle of the week, and this definitely could develop into a tropical storm, if not greater. Then there's Gordon behind that. That has prospects to develop potentially more of a fish storm, and then maybe even a system behind that. So we're really starting to get a pickup in the tropics across the Atlantic Basin, and a lot of it really comes down to we need the moisture, we need the tropical waves, and we also need the water temperatures as well in a favorable MJO pattern. So looking here at those sea surface temperatures in degrees Celsius, you can convert this over, but looking at this 30 to 32 degrees Celsius water temperatures in all of the Gulf, even those shelf waters are just absolutely boiling right now. The Western Caribbean, the shelf waters off of Cuba and Jamaica and even portions of the Dominican Republic are extremely warm right now, and all the Caribbean in general. And you can see that here with the temperature anomalies. You can see the bright oranges. Those are well above average out here into the Caribbean and the Gulf and the Western Atlantic in general. So here's your tropical depression probability and percentages through next Friday, September 6th. You can see pretty high chances of a depression, really almost a certainty before it reaches portions of the Windward Islands or maybe just beyond that, and then potentially a tropical storm As it moves over the Windward Islands and in toward the open waters of the Caribbean, we'll have to wait on that. Right now, only a 20, maybe 30% chance of that developing at this current time. The next two names on the list would be Francine. That's the one that could be moving into the Caribbean as we go into the middle of next week. And then Gordon, which looks more like a fish storm, but still going to be possibly named as we go in towards next week. Probably later next week and next weekend will be something that we'll be watching, those next two names, Francine and Gordon. So make sure to stick with me here at Weather on the Go. We'll keep you latest updates on this channel for you. Make sure to subscribe to the latest weather forecast here so we can keep you updated with the latest videos and live streams on this channel. Make sure to like the video down below by giving it a thumbs up. Leave any comments, questions, and concerns below. We'll get to those later on today, and I hope everyone has a wonderful rest of their Friday out there.